The irony of modern life is we spend decades planning the building phase of life. We plan education, career, family, homes, responsibilities, and routines. We become experts at building. But when we finally arrive at the retirement phase that's supposed to be about freedom, we often reduce it to one question: do I have enough money? What we ask far less often is, do I actually know how to live when my life no longer is being structured for me? And that is where retirement can catch people off guard. I'm Michelle, and on my channel we talk about creating a peaceful, confident life after 50, especially if you're living alone, traveling solo, or navigating retirement. For years, we have been taught to treat retirement like a financial finish line. Save enough, invest enough, pay things off, reach the magical number. And once you get there, happiness is supposed to show up automatically. But retirement is not just a financial transition. It's an identity, routine, and social and emotional transition. And if you only prepare your money without preparing the rest of you, retirement can feel a lot more disorienting than anyone could warn you about. I think one reason this happens is because money feels concrete. It feels safe. It feels measurable. You can sit down with a spreadsheet and run the numbers. You can calculate your expenses, you can estimate healthcare costs, and you can project investment income. There is something comforting about that because it feels like you have control. Money gives you a target, but your emotional life does not work like that. Your sense of purpose does not neatly fit into a cell on a spreadsheet. Your loneliness cannot be forecasted like inflation. Your need for meaning, structure, movement, and connection is harder to measure, so people tend to ignore it until it becomes a problem. You think, I should be happy. I worked so hard for this. Why doesn't it feel as good as I thought it would? We are sold this very polished version of retirement. It looks like a permanent vacation. Endless travel, golf, leisure, no alarm clock, no pressure, just freedom and relaxation forever. And of course, that sounds wonderful after decades of responsibility. But the truth is, life with demands is not automatically a meaningful life. Relief is not the same thing as fulfillment. It's true that sometimes people find the freedom they've always dreamed of, only to realize they're not sure how to fill their time with purpose. Because work, even when it's stressful, gives people a lot more than a paycheck. It gives structure, it gives a role, and it gives built-in social contact. It gives you places to go, people to talk to, problems to solve, and reasons to get dressed. So when that ends, even if you were ready financially, you may not have been ready emotionally for how quiet life can suddenly feel. People who were always responsible, busy, productive, and caring for others may find retirement liberating at first, but it can also be disorienting. Retirement can quietly raise the question of identity when no one is asking anything from them. That's why I believe retirement planning has to become more holistic. Yes, money matters, of course it does. Financial security creates options. It creates peace. It gives you breathing room. But money by itself does not create a good life. It only supports one. And if you don't know what kind of life you're trying to build, then all the savings in the world will not answer that deeper question. One of the biggest overlooked risks in retirement is the identity crisis that can come with it. If your profession has become a huge part of how you see yourself, losing that title can feel bigger than expected. You are no longer the teacher, the manager, the nurse, the business owner, the parent with a full house, and the person everyone depends on. And that can feel like a loss, even when retirement was your choice. I think sometimes people expect themselves to step into retirement and feel instantly grateful, instantly relaxed, and instantly fulfilled. But real life is messier than that. Sometimes retirement brings relief and grief at the same time. Relief that the pressure is over, but a grief that a whole identity has ended. Relief that your time is your own, and grief that you do not quite know how to use it yet. Another big challenge is losing the structure and social connection we get from work. Even if you don't enjoy it, work gives us a rhythm. Meetings, deadlines, routines, coworkers, lunch breaks, commutes, and small interactions that shape our day. When all of that disappears, the days can feel like they're blending together. You might think you'll love all the free time, but too much unstructured time can actually make people disconnected. Disconnected. This is where a lot of boredom and loneliness can creep in. Not because retirement is bad, but because human beings need some shape to their lives. We need anchors in the week. We need places to be and familiar faces. And if you don't intentionally create that, retirement can start to feel smaller than you expected. Then there is the physical side of all of this, which I think is just as important. Your health is what allows you to actually enjoy the life that you worked so hard to build. It's what allows you to travel, think clearly, stay independent, and participate in your own life. But when work ends, a lot of built-in movement and mental stimulation can disappear too. You may not be walking the office halls anymore. You may not be solving problems all day. And you may not be keeping the same level of physical and mental momentum. And decline does not always happen because someone is old. Sometimes it happens because they become inactive, isolated, and understimulated. So when I talk about retirement planning, I think the question cannot just be, how much money do I need? I think the question also has to be, what kind of person do I want to be in this next chapter? What do I want my days to feel like? And what do I want to be learning? Who do I want to be around me? And how do I want to take care of my body? What gets me out of bed besides obligation? Those questions matter just as much as the financial ones. A truly successful retirement needs purpose. And I don't mean some huge dramatic purpose where you suddenly launch a nonprofit, write a memoir, or move across the world. I just mean a reason to stay engaged with life. A reason to keep growing. A reason to feel that your presence still matters. Purpose can be creative work, mentoring, a small side business. It could be taking classes, helping in your community, or walking your dog every morning, and becoming a regular somewhere and building small connections that make life feel warm and human again. You also need a social strategy, and I think that phrase is important because connection does not always happen automatically, especially as we get older. When we were younger, social life was often built into our lives. We met people through school, work, our kids, neighborhoods, and busy schedules. But later in life, connection has to become more intentional. If you are retired and living alone, or even retired with a marriage where both people are doing their own thing, you can still feel isolated if you're not actively building relationships and routines outside of your home. That means thinking ahead. Where will your people come from? What spaces will you be a regular in? What communities will you join? Who are you going to call? And who is going to notice if you disappear for a week? That may sound dramatic, but it matters. We all need to feel seen. And then there is time structure, not a rigid schedule that makes life feel like work all over again, but enough rhythm that your days have shape. Maybe there's a morning walk, certain days for errands, certain days for creative work, lunch with a friend once a week, a class, a standing coffee date, a gym routine, a museum visit, a project you're working towards. Not because you need to stay busy for the sake of staying busy, but because meaningful structure protects your mental health. I really think that is what people are missing when they imagine retirement as endless relaxation. Rest is beautiful, slowness is beautiful, but a good life still needs intention. It still needs direction. It still needs some version of growth, connection, care, and purpose. So yes, plan for your retirement income. Know your numbers. Be wise and realistic. Build the savings and protect your future. But please don't stop there. Also plan for the human side of retirement. Plan for who you will be, not just what you will spend. Plan for your body, your mind, and your relationships. Plan for what will make your life feel meaningful when no one is handing you a schedule. Because retirement is not just about escaping work. It's about building a life that you actually want to wake up to. And I think that's the shift. Retirement is not a destination where happiness automatically arrives once your account balance is high enough. It's a phase of life that still requires design. It still requires self-awareness, courage, and imagination. And the people who seem to do this best are usually not the ones with the biggest portfolios. They are the ones who know how they want to live. They know what matters to them. They stay curious, connected, and engaged. They protect their health, build life with shape and meaning. And if this is something that you've been thinking about lately, I would love to know which part feels most important to you right now, the money, purpose, or the health side. Thank you so much for watching.